Hi. I think I gotta come at the world right here with some Monday morning motivation. First and foremost, I don't know what day it is. Day of the week. It's Mother's Day. And colloquially, everybody likes to have good, happy times, good Mother's Day. But you know what? My life and anybody who's living their life as authentically as humanly possible does not live under the confines of weekdays or, weekends and holidays and off around May. And you'll always be wrong no matter what you say. I before E, except after C. When sounds like A is a neighbor in a way. Weekends and holidays and off around May. Anyways, what I am saying in this moment in time is, when I walk around in the world, I see people, right? Everybody sees people. And the people that I'm specifically highlighting in this moment in time are the happy people. The people that walk around. For instance, my old elderly lady neighbor popped open her garage today while I was in my garage. And some middle-aged women kind of are strolling by and they say, "Hey, how you doing? Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. I hope you're having a happy Mother's Day." And they just sound joyous. They sound like they're living their life with love. And me, in comparison, am the black. I am the black stain. I am the black smudge. The black. I am the boundary definer in my life more and more nowadays. And sometimes I do feel very bad about this. But you know what? No. I'm assuming my role in life. Okay? I recognize that being a man is not always easy. Okay? I grew, what the sort of household, my upbringing has been very feminine. A very feminine upbringing. Which means I didn't have male role models growing up. How do I say this? I don't know. I don't know how to say this in an eloquent way, so I'll say this in a very rudimentary, sloppy way. I grew up with influential female roles. Like, my aunts were very strong in that kind of way. They were very assertive and caring and attentive, and here's the itinerary, and here's the plan, and we're gonna execute the plan, and we're gonna, these strong female figures in my life. Ladies that would go into the military or air traffic controlling. It's like people who know how to make decisions, people who know how to organize. Groups of people who know how to execute, to operate plans and whatnot. And then also just, being emotionally available. People, these are the sort of role models that I grew up with. And when it came to male role models, well, the ones that I had closest to me weren't necessarily role models that I wanted to emulate. The roles that they modeled were not ones that I wanted to adopt and assume. They were more cautionary tales in my projection of them, which later on I would describe these things. In my growth, they have been lessons for me. They have illuminated the various places in my life that I get snagged on, the places where I get pulled down. The places where there's still something in me that gets that I need to, that I would need to grow from. And the best way I can describe that is the ways that, the various, you'll have different relationship dynamics with everybody under the sun. And these relationship dynamics that the universe called upon me in my soul to become, taught me what it is to be a man. Okay, so I'm going to get really specific with my family history here, just to paint a real clear picture. My brother, a little older than me, he got into drugs. I know, I'm not blaming him. I know, it all comes down to who, I can't blame him for the decisions that I've made in my life. He introduced me to drugs. He said, hey, want to try these? At the time, 16, whenever I tried these things, they felt good. In my 16, 17-year-old brain, this feels good, do more, and this is like, I had to crawl my fucking way out of this hellhole, like they do in that pilgrimage in the church in Spain or something like that. I just had to crawl across broken glass and cobblestone to pull myself out of this. And anywho's, so that was going on. That went on. That's part of it. Another ingredient would be, our household was of three. It was my brother, me, and my mom. My mom, more of the blind eye type, don't, see no evil, don't say it, don't bring it up, avoid it, hey. Well, eventually I had to grow into my role, which was pull myself out of the shithole and then, sort of attack, I had to light this fucking sage in the house. I had to start chanting, hallelujah, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, fucking, I had to blast. I was like, we ain't want no devils in the house. We want the Lord. That's it. Type of shit, okay? No joke. And so, anyways, the thing about my life that I have come to understand more and more is that a lot of us operate under the sort of principle of go along to get along. Go along to get along, It's better to get along, And so what happens is we end up stuffing something inside of us, keeping something inside that, I think that if I bring this up, we're going to have to go angry face on them. And so, we try our best to hide whatever it is that we're aware of from ourselves, from other people. We're doing the sins a service. Look, we're not doing anybody a service if we sweep these things under the rug. And so, where do I want to go and what do I want to say about this? Well, I had a pretty rough time, My brother and I are pretty estranged. And this right here is just channeling good energy back into the universe, because I guess this is more of a little prep talk for me. Because here is my life. Here's my situation. Here's how I view the world, etc., etc. I am a sensitive person. I pick up on I could pick up on a microaggression. I could pick up on a how about instead of going into the past, what am I feeling in this very moment in time? In this very moment in time, I'm feeling a whirlwind, right? I don't like going on a real tirade about the truth, and you gotta tell the truth, and you gotta represent what you are. You gotta represent, you gotta be of service to the world. So that means you gotta it's your duty. You have to be of service to the world. You have to be of service to other people. And so what this means to me is you have to, like, what is the most beneficial thing of service that you could do to somebody? It's like, hold them accountable to the things that, it's like, feeling judgmental is not a great thing. Sometimes people will do things in their life, and it's like, in my soul, it's like immediately, it's like, oh, I disagree with that. This is a damn shame. We just wandered into deep waters here. I disagree with a decision you've made, and I can't just, I cannot just say, oh yeah, hell yeah, nice, and ride for that, like, I think to myself, like, am I wrong? Should you just love people through everything all the time, always, even, etc., etc.? And I believe. I believe in communication. I believe in the truth. I believe in telling the truth. I believe in being of service to. I believe in being of service to everybody. Okay, like the Mahayana Buddhist approach. If you can get yourself to a place where you can open up. Okay, I want this part of the conversation to be more Americanized in this. I don't want this to be spiritually, I don't want this to go to the spiritual community. I don't want this to go to the meditative community, the Buddhist community. I want this to go to the everyday average listener. And this would be like in every single one of our relationships. Imagine it like a circle. It's a pie. Now, there is a slice of pie in every single one of our relationships that there's a section of that pie that we are not willing to, that means there's conversations that are not willing to be had. There's emotions that are not willing to be felt in each and every one of these pies. And and depending on who your relationship is with, what the dynamics are in XYZ, it's either a sliver of that pie, maybe there's nothing taken out of that pie, or it's a majority. Maybe it's the whole freaking pie. The whole relationship is foundationally built upon lies, going along to get along, fakenesses, just deception, just get me out of here. We can't spend more than 10 seconds together, because if we did, we're gonna get into a real conversation about what we're really feeling, and it's gonna blow over quick. And so anyways, Mother's Day just so happened to be the catalyst for my brother and I to have the conversation that we needed to have for a long time. Why do we need to have that conversation, and why was it a long time? Okay. I can only tell you things from my perspective, and I would back absolutely anything that I've ever said in my entire life. Because even if I haven't always been an honest person, even if I got scared and told some half-truths or whatever in my days, or whatever my past was, I have no qualms about throwing myself under the bus. Like, I have no qualms about what the view is about me, right? Of course I want it to be good and shit like this, and maybe life is a little different when you're in the thick of it. But again, I'll stand up against a goddamn movie theater filled with people, and I'll say it loud and proud and wrong and strong, and I'll say, you're all wrong, every single one of you, if need be, if it ever came back down to it. I'm not gonna pretend that this line is not. I'm not gonna pretend that line number 2 is longer than line number 3. I'm not doing it. Not doing it. And so, anyways, the reason Mother's Day was probably the fucking best. I'll tell you why this was the best. Because negative experiences are oftentimes some of the most transformative. They're also some of the most memorable. They're also some of the most meaningful experiences we can possibly generate in our lives. So usually, the reason why my brother and I can never get into the sort of conversations that we need to are because he could just always go back into comfort-seeking behavior. He can always just go back into his room, shut the door, lock the door, put the headphones on, stare at the computer for another set of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours for the day, and then he can just sit there on he could sit there in his chair and vape. He could sit there and just smoke weed through a THC cartridge, and he could just exist in that way. And it's a multifaceted sort of issue in my eyes, because there's the perspective out there that says, why don't you just love your brother? Why don't you just love him? Why do you have to judge him for what he does? And I see that, right? But you know what? Fuck you. If you had a son, if you had somebody that you cared about and you did not do, if you're not willing to be the bad guy, to give, I made my brother cry tonight at dinner. How? How did I do that? Well, I was being antagonistic. I was being annoying as shit. And I'll tell you a story. Okay, I'm telling a story in a story. You know, back earlier this summer, we went and my grandfather died. And so we went up to Pennsylvania to go bury him. We went up for the funeral. We went up for like the wake. We went up for like that kind of stuff. And, you know, we went up there for like 2 or 3 days. And so a funeral takes like a few hours. So we're kind of doing the lead up, XYZ. And then in that time, we went to a pizza parlor and we saw my grandmother's brother and his wife. And I don't know I'm meeting these people for the first time. It's kind of like when they say, oh my God, I remember when you were this big type of shit. And so I'm like in that moment. And, well, the thing that I wanted to allude to is that, like, when you go through the sort of things like, oh, so what do you do? Right? And I'm just, you know, I'm like, ugh. You know, at this time, I was like, I work at Walmart. You know? And he's like, what else do you do? I'm like, I make art, lift weights, and, what, you know, all that ish. And he's like, yeah, nice. I could tell. Or whatever. And then he turns to my brother. He's like, well, what do you do? What does my brother say he does? Something that he hasn't done in 10 years. He didn't say, oh, I think he did say, oh, I'm doing like electronics. I'm doing electrical stuff right now. And then when it got past that, it's like, oh, what else do you do? And it's like, oh, let me come up with something interesting, as opposed to saying the thing that I really do. Like, it's like he's not even backing his own life. And so what I did in that moment, I zipped my fucking mouth. I live with the dude. I know that he doesn't go rock climbing. You fucking kidding me? Oh, you go rock climbing now? Yeah, you might have done that one time. It's like, yeah, I pretty much do indoor skydiving. It's like, I did that one time. I don't tell people I do that. Anyways, so in that moment in time, I didn't throw him under the bus. I didn't say, you don't do that. You don't do that. That's not who you live. That's not how you are. But, you know, tonight, dude, it's multifaceted. It's definitely multifaceted. And this is just, you know, this is the sort of will of God, right? I mean, my brother, I don't know what my brother's MO is, dude. He walks around life. I gaslight myself, dude. I gaslight my fucking self. I walk around like a neat freak in comparison to my brother. Like, and I have to think to myself, do I have a fucking problem? Well, I mean, sometimes I do. And sometimes that problem is a solution. And the only problem that is really about that is the rumination, is the sort of uncertainty, like, is cleaning bad for you? Is organizing things bad for you? Anyways, so, like, no joke, like, my brother literally walks through every room, and there's just always something left to be done in that room. It's like, you know, if he walks in the room, 5 minutes later, I gotta walk in the room, and it's like, what is there to be done in here? What would to be done in this room if there were anything to be done, right? If I were to clean things up, if I were to change the environment, what would I do? Okay, I guess I'd close the cabinets. All right, looks like he put the dishes in the sink, but not in the dishwasher. What a cunt. Looks like food stuff is just left out. Wrappers from food that has been heated is just left around. It's like, dude, oh my God. First of all, dude, I can totally use my mental framework to, like, totally get past this. And, like, obviously there's no issue here. You're just seeing into the world. You're just looking for problems. You're just looking for issues. You have OCD, you're having an episode, and you're crazy, delusional, retarded, stupid, and everybody hates you. Why? Because, you can't live in a place that's not clean. Anyways, so that's just one aspect. And then there's other things. It's like, it's a whole picture. It's not just that. It's like a whole way, it's a lifestyle. Like, when he walks through a room, this is, I think of him, my brother is a very, he's a thing-oriented person, an animal-oriented person, and people can go fuck themselves. Me included, my mom included, and our dog is basically, our dog and the computer reign supreme. What that looks like is, like, he wants to assume a kind of masculine male role to be a kind of leader, but he's also the kind of leader that you don't love. He's the kind of leader that you kind of dread. I kind of dread this kind of leader, and it's because they're cold. They don't lead with love. They don't lead with, I have a truth bias. People who are willing to get ugly with me, if they're speaking from their heart, dude, there is no ugliness in that for me. But, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, things don't have to be all hunky-dory and good in my life. Like, if somebody could, like, pull out the truth, for whatever the truth is, like, I wouldn't even be able to tell you. There's something inside, there's some kind of, like, sense we have. I have. There's a sense that I feel, like, I trust it. There's sometimes somebody will just come at me with a kind of familiarity. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes people will speak and it sounds like they have a script. Like they're working off of some kind of dialogue. And then other times it feels like people are just kind of ripping, they're just kind of rolling right through with their emotion, with their sort of like, hey, I'm actually figuring this out impromptu, on the fly, in this moment in time. Hey, get this, I'm living my life in the moment, in this moment in time. And you're here. We're interacting. You're more, hey, whoa, I'm being perceived right now. Like, there's just something. There's just some kind of, something, I can smell it. There's something about the flavor. There's something in the air. It's like, it's the way that you can, like in the way that you can smell that it's about to rain on a very cloudy day. There's just something there that's in the substratum. And so my brother, like, he just kind of makes you feel like an object to be used a lot. Like it's his way or the highway. And that's, I get control. I get pride, this sort of like, I'm willing into existence, and whatever. But like, here's like a thing. Like, if you're ever walking through like a tight space, and how if you're encountering somebody else who's going from the direction that you just came in, you guys would like turn towards each other or turn away from each other to like scoot by, as opposed to just kind of broad facing it. Yeah, he's the type of motherfucker that just like will shoulder check you. But in a microaggression kind of way. Just in the kind of way that where you are, you're just like a ghost. Like, you're invisible. You don't exist to this human being. Like, this is how he behaves. And I've thought to myself for the longest time, like, am I gaslighting myself, whatever? Am I justifying his sort of like ignorance, his behavior of whatever? Does he just have like severe Asperger's kind of autism, and he's like, social cues don't exist. I don't even know I'm doing wrong. So if I don't even know I'm doing wrong, I can't even be doing wrong. I don't know about it. Well, anyways, like, when we were in the car, sitting in the back seat, chilling in the back seat, you know, what way can I take? It's Mother's Day, gonna get on Mother's Day. You know, everybody's looking forward to the salvation. You know, whatever, you know. Him and my mom are kind of chatting it up in the front seat, and I'm sitting there in the back, just kind of like being very choice with the things that I was gonna say. The things I was kind of remaining silent for the most part in this instant, and what would occur to me in this time was my mind would, like, my responses, the sort of initial responses that would come to me in that moment were to say like a dorky, cheesy dad joke. It's like some like kind of stupid joke. But whatever, like this, I was feeling like a kind of like tenseness in myself, just like a can't say nothing, just like a kind of like a weird restriction or like a weird energy. Like sometimes, well, here's kind of how things work, right? In the world, there's relationships, and in relationships, there are relationship dynamics. And imagine this. Some people have so much gravity that the conversation will orbit them. And it's not always pleasurable. Like, the best, you know, sometimes it's like the best kind of person that the conversation is to orbit is the kind of person that says, hey, I recognize you were talked over. What did you say? You know, this is the kind of person that you'd want the conversation to orbit, in my opinion. Like, this is a characteristic of them. Considerate, thoughtful, you know. And anyways, other times the conversation can orbit somebody who is very, very picky, you know, someone who doesn't like their carrots touching their peas. And so you'll see this in old people who are like, I don't like that. You know, and they're just sort of like used to ruling the world, you know. They don't like something, guess what? They don't like something, guess what? They're not going to have it, you know. They're like, they basically go through life just saying, I hate that, I hate that, I hate you, hate this, hate this, hate this, hate this. And this is just how they sort of navigate. So the people closest to them, the way that I see it, is like, at some point there's like a going along to get along, because otherwise just every conversation would be more or less, you know, butting heads, really. Anyways, so, you know, I chime in to say something. My mom asks me a question, and my brother answers for me. And then, whatever, I'm like, all right, that's one, who cares? Blah, 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 blah. And then something happens, like 20 seconds later, I get a question asked. And then I begin speaking, and then instantaneously, he just starts speaking over me. I just, you know, I zip it. I'm like, all right, whatever, right? Whatever. You know, and then I get asked the question, hey, what were you saying? And, you know, this whole time, there's all these sort of like micro whatevers happening. Like, it's just these things that I'm noticing. You know, when he would open the door, and he'd hold it, but not for me. Like, everything is more important than little bro. Everything is. It's like standing in line for the popcorn to get some soda, and popcorn is more important. Anyways, when we sat down, dude, they started grilling me about, oh, what am I going to eat? And we went to Bonefish, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to eat anything for a few reasons. First of all, I can't justify spending $30 for one serving of steamed green beans and steamed broccoli and carrots. I can't justify this. I know, in the dream sort of life, it'd be great to just fucking buy whatever, don't think, just not even having to think about money and just, being so financially ridiculously rich that you don't have to even worry about shit like that. You don't even have to think about shit like that, and just basically live your life through abundance mindset, and you'll get there. You don't have to budget. You don't have to be financially aware of your spending habits and where your money goes, right? How do you get your money? You get your money the way you know. Where does your money go? Well, this one is yeah, well, basically, I know where every dollar comes in from and where it goes. All right? And so, am I cheap? Am I frugal? Am I on top of my shit right now? Yes, okay, I'm looking very close. I'm auditing my own life, okay? I'm looking at the fucking books and all that shit. And so, things I don't... And because after I got rid of, the super addictions in my life and I started living my life more aligned with my purpose, everything else started, like dominoes. Everything, okay? It's like, holy shit, I recognize that when I'm feeling some type of way, empty or whatever, I don't go and make something. I don't go and try and vent. I don't go and try and converse with God. I don't go and try and connect with myself. No, you know what I do? I go shopping. I'll go to the thrift store. I'll go buy some clothes. I'll go buy some food. I'll go buy something. And it just keeps me in these habits. Anyways, so after this sort of the dominoes fell, it's like all of these other sort of less obvious addictions became a little more apparent in my life, where they sit and what I had to do about them. And so yeah, I know hearing that I don't make it rain when I walk into Bonefish Grill isn't the most appealing thing in the world for a young, naive person to hear. There's probably some old heads out there that are like, yep, yeah, be smart about where you're spending, because it's more than just money, you stupid hoe. It's more than just money. It's actually, you know what's behind that? It's, first of all, it's energy. 2, it's actually you spending your time going somewhere to acquire something because you feel like you need it. Or it's like an addiction where you I get that weird feeling. How am I gonna quench it? How am I gonna, I'll just go buy something. So it's a whole conglomerate of, it's an amalgamation of many things. It's a diverse kind of thing. Smorgasbord. And so that's part of it. And then I was also, so I'm a man of balance. And so I used to walk 12 miles a day, right? Because I was obsessed with my physique, bodybuilding, XYZ. And now I have invested more of the time that I'd spend walking and exercising. Now I've spent this exercising a different sort of way of life. I'm more into creating things. I'm more into making things. I'm more into generating things. And so I took all the time that I invested over there, I put it over here. That means I can't eat as much food and maintain the sort of physique that I like to live inside of, that I like to live as. And so it's like, you know, I'm doing substitutions. I'm doing like substrates of this. I'm titrating back this. And it's like, whoa, you're starving yourself? You know what I've gotten to realize? A lot of times I will eat food even if I'm not hungry. Legitimately. And it's like moments like these where I see it like, whoa, oh my God. These are like chemicals. Like, this is like dopamine. These are all like the sort of happy chemicals hitting a flurry every time I go open the fridge or I walk into the kitchen, just kind of like, do you know how often I would just kind of find myself in the kitchen? Just whoop. Well, here I am. What do I do here? Oh, I guess I'll open up the cabinet and see what's happening here. It's like, what am I expecting to, what am I expecting to do? Anyways, so I'm doing like 1.5, 2 meals a day, right? I get my protein from protein powder. You know, I'll do like I make protein bars at home. I do some Greek yogurt, like parfaits and stuff like this with some nuts and seeds and blah 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 blah. And I make, you know, and so everybody's got their thing. My thing currently, you know, my little sweet treat is I'll make a few cups of coffee in the morning. I'll get a protein shake, and then I'll shake it, kind of froth up that milk, and I'll do like a mocha cappuccino. I'll make some homemade mocha cappuccinos with chocolate protein powder, and it's amazing. I love it. You know, every single meal. I don't eat a lot of food nowadays, but I enjoy the food that I eat way more. It's like, oh my God. Anyways, so I said in that moment, they were grilling me to an extent, like, what are you gonna eat? You gonna eat? And I said, I just said what I had to say. I just say what I need to say. But, you know, when you say what you need to say, you also say it from what you're feeling, right? So we were having this kind of above ground conversation about whatever we were, but the sort of underlying tones of whatever the conversation was there was tension, there was torsion, there was some kind of pull, there was some kind of tug of war happening, irritation, aggravation, this kind of thing. And so, you know, I just in that moment in time, I felt very unheard. In that moment, they're like, whoa, come on, eat, honey, eat. And I'm like, well, I don't think you understand. Like, even if I had a set bank account in this kind of way, it's like, I can't do this because I can't just do things. I can't operate from things that are outside of my value system and outside of my principles just to go along to get along. It's like, no, like I'm here in this moment because it's Mother's Day and I'd rather just have the experience. I don't need to come along and be spending. Like, I don't have the money. Okay? I don't have the money to spend. I don't have the money to go out in that way, okay? I don't know, you don't ever know this, but yeah, I don't have money. I've got bills. I don't know if that ever occurred to you. And so I know in my heart of hearts, I don't go out to eat, dude. I look for deals. You know what I'm saying? Like, I look for the best market price. What is the best price per ounce on the bulk frozen vegetables that I can get? You know, what is the best price that I can go and buy the most amount of eggs at one time, but not like so many that I wouldn't be able to eat them before they start going bad type of stuff. Like, I'm like with it in this kind of way, like a couponer. And so, you know, what ends up happening is my brother kind of does this, like, he pulls this money card on me. He's like, yeah, some people want to try and control you with money. It's like some people want to try and buy your love, so they'll buy you things or whatever. But here's what it really is. Like, some people, they get so caught up in giving you something that now you have to be the givee. Like, instead of there just being the giving, and it's like, I pass you something, you now have something, and it's just nothing more than that. Now it's like, no, like, I hate for this to be like a real specific kind of bashing of my brother, but I know that I'm not alone out there, and I know that there's somebody listening to this, and I know that they want me to grow in the best possible way from this. And I know that they're along the process with me, cheering me on. They're supporting me, and they're in my corner for the times that I'm wrong and the times that I've been with grace. And so there's a story about some people who what happens is they're so caught up in giving you something. It's like they want to be known as the giver. It's like, fuck anonymous charity giving. I want my name to be on that bitch. I want my name to be up and flashing lights about it. Like, you need to know that I gave you this. You need to know where it came from. You need to know that the source is me. I gave you this, okay? So just remember that. And it's like, whoa, at that point, I have no qualms about just not taking that, right? There's something, I think it came from the Buddha, one of the Buddhas, is like, if you give somebody something and they don't take it, who is it for? And so he's like, yeah, so basically, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the money or whatever. I'm like, dude, it's principle for me. The richer people get, the more expensive the most mundane shit gets, right? Who the hell is spending $28 on a three egg omelet? Well, the people who accept that. I don't accept that. That's one. And two, I came from the experience, and I had dude, I wasn't specifically hungry at the time. I was gonna say, I was perfectly adequate at just saying, you know what, I'm just gonna sit this one out. I've got stuff. We've got food at the house, right? I don't need McDonald's. And just was gonna ride with that. But who had an issue with this? Everyone had an issue with this. God, everyone had an issue with this. And so eventually, well, things came to a T, right? Because, he was jabbing at me in this kind of way. And, eventually I let the cat out of the bag. All right, I let the cat out of the bag. And then we get into the thickest of conversations we can ever get into. It's like, hey, dude, what are you gonna do about that drug problem? What are you gonna do when the people that are closest to you, to the place that you're moving to, are also in the throes of this sort of addiction, and there's nothing but just enabling something that's shortening your lifespan. It's like, here's my poll, dude. My poll is like, yeah, I get it. Free will. Everyone lives their own lives, and, people make their own choices and they're free to do that. Free will. And then it's like, yeah, well, if you care about somebody, how much are you willing to, are you willing to cut off the arm to save the person? Yeah, I'm like, I'm like doing the sort of equivalent in this kind of way, where I'm like, yeah, I don't give a shit about if you hate me in this moment in time. This is about the sort of delayed gratification. Like, you're not getting away. It's not like people know what you're doing when you go to the bathroom but you don't pee. Hello, I was in there. It's like, yeah, people know what you're doing when you take a hour and a half long shower. Whatever, these things are besides the point, kind of, right? It's like, at this point in time, it's like, how do I show my love? I show my love by saying, hey, I care about you, buddy. This is actually not good for you. This is bad, right? You don't eject soon, you don't eject now. Guess what? Here's what it looks like. And it's like, I have no qualms about taking away the fruity, delicious vape flavors and just keeping the tobacco ones. I have no qualms about keeping the most ugly packaging, the Pantone color, like the ugly doo-doo diarrhea brown and green that they do in Australia, or what they do in Canada, where they, on the package of cigarettes, they show you those grotesque, malignant, cancerous tumors and growths that happen as a result of this way of life. And so I have no qualms about being like, hey, guess what? This is in your future. And, and a number of other things. And so I saw, this, what it really was is this whole thing was like the storm before the calm. Like, this is the type of shit, like, he said, I hate you. He told me, he said, I hate you. And I said, right now you do. And then when later on, when things settled, he was just kind of sitting there for a second, going through his other distraction which is social media and his cell phone, as opposed to, like, what is on display, our lives that are before us. What we're actually the contents of our mind as we're living in the moment with the people who we're with. My mind was doing some shit. Like, I was looking at him, and in his mind, like, he was no longer, like, sort of in that sort of blind fury that he was, of just like, I'm being attacked. Now he was like, I think he was in that moment sort of like having a sort of come to Jesus moment, where maybe it was his rational mind or his intellect or whatever was kind of like, I guess maybe he does love me. Maybe he's not wrong. Maybe, And I was just kind of getting this based on, like, looking at his expression, his body language and whatnot. And this was just sort of painting what I imagined was going on in his mind in that moment. And yeah, it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny. We get back in the car, and then I thought I said something a little humorous. I was like, I posed a question. I posed the question as if somebody in their lives was asking them the question. I was like, so how was Mother's Day? After this crazy fucking thing. No one laughed. No one clapped. And oh yeah. And then I popped the big question, which was, dude, what's our relationship gonna be when Mom dies? Because, like, the only relationship that we have is sort of predicated on this tertiary unit. You know, the relationship that we have, it's not in great shape right now. It's not in great shape right now, and you know, sometimes, and you know, I struggle with this too. I battle with this because I think to myself, like, you know, she don't want to be saved, don't save her. She don't want to be saved, don't... Like, right? Like, at what point am I an idiot, right? Am I an idiot if I give up on my brother and I think to myself, this relationship isn't worth it, dude. It's all fire and brimstone and lava and ice. It's just like, dude, it's fury all the time. It's like, you know... You know, at what point do I walk away, and, or do I, right? Is that, I don't know. You know, I gotta pull one out of Ram Dass's playbook and say, you know, never shut someone out of your heart. And dude, it was amazing, dude. Like, how was Mother's Day? Awesome. It was awesome, bro. Like, I looked over at my mom. I was sitting next to my mom, not across from her, and I looked over at my mom, like, it's like the sort of conversation we're having is like conflict, kind of surrounded by love, a little bit of like an intervention mixed with like the kind of people that were like, we were supposed to have a good night tonight. We were supposed to go out on a night for the town and you brought this horse shit with you. Kind of energy. And then I'm like, yeah, basically maybe, but this is actually the sort of life circumstances. This is kind of like an aspect of reality, sort of life circumstances. And so here's this. But it was supposed to be a great night tonight. It's 7 p.m. after all. It's the night of Halley's Comet. Why are we... It's bingo night. How are you? It's like, it's always something. It's always something. When is it the thing that we don't talk about? If you always have the ability to just go into comfort-seeking behavior and just kind of like pull some pain from Naruto out, where you could just universal push, boom, and I'm out, you know? Then, you know, that's just... I've tried that. I've done that whole insanity shit. Anyways, I look over at my mom like mid spick and spat of this sort of like a very, very sharp conversation we were having, and I could tell, like, she was like, whoa. It was like almost like riding a roller coaster. She was like, I don't like this, but I kind of like this. This is... Dude, that show it was awesome. It was awesome. It's like, how do you explain something like that? You can only explain something like that with like a super methodical story. It's like that was such a like a nuanced and dynamic thing going on. It wasn't just all bad. It wasn't just all aggressive. It's like, no. It's like sometimes love looks a little... Sometimes love is like bringing awareness to things that aren't good for you. That's like... And being very, 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 you know... Hello? You know, there's only so much sweeping under the rug that we can do. There's only so much, or like beating around the bush that we can do as people. And I'm growing into a person who does not, I don't desire conflict. I don't desire confrontation. It's not that I want this. It's like, what do I want? Things not like that. But what I also want is to not shy away from them if they ever do arise. And so honestly, after we got home, he jet sets out of the car. He goes into his room, he goes and walks our dog. He's out for a little bit. My mom and I are just in the kitchen sort of conversing, talking about everything and all of it. And just rallying, dude, rallying. Conversation to me, real conversation that's meaningful and significant to me is emotional conversation. Things where it's just, it's the infinity sign, dude. It's the infinity sign. All right, we're flowing. I take it, you take it. I take it, you take it. I take it, you take it. Like, just direct, authentic communication. Just two hearts, open hearts, being honest with each other. Being chatty Cathy's, just being open. And I think about this often, but I don't think I ever really put myself there about this one. I think about my mom dying a lot. I think about my dad dying a lot. And I think about what it would be like to be an orphan, or to be just familyless. And I think about it and it stresses me out. It more or less worries me. I'm I wanna just, kind of not think about it or whatever. And, I phase in and out. I phase in and out to the sort of intensity of that. And in this moment in time, I was having this conversation with my mom, and it was amazing, dude. It was the most beautiful experience you could ever have. Just feeling feeling free, essentially. It's just feeling free. You don't feel restricted in any kind of way. Oh, you have a negative feedback, you have a negative sort of interpretation of whatever. Who gives a shit? Here's what I'm feeling. I'll wear it on my face and in my actions and my body language and all that. And it's it's because it's we're free of shame. We're free of there's nothing to be embarrassed about. We're just it's just two people who love each other. That it's what we are, that doesn't mean shit. It's we prioritize the communication. And she walked out of the laundry room or whatever, and it's it just hit me like a fuck ton of, it just hit me, dude, like a sack of potatoes. Drop like a sack of potatoes. Where for whatever reason, I was somewhere along the timeline of my life where I existed and my mom moved on. And I was looking at her in this moment, having this kind of appreciation for her, thinking she's gonna be gone, but she's here now. And it's like, life is so interesting in this way. It's like, I'm thinking all of these things, and, you know, my face can only say so much, but that's like, my face was saying those thoughts. And so yeah, I'm gonna get out of here, bro. Thank you so much for the ear. Thank you so much for lending the ear. Thank you so much for the space to, you know, kind of express this. Yeah. And I want to tell you, I was reminded of one more thing. Like, I was soaking everything of that moment in. Like, I wasn't gonna go. There was nothing more important than my family in that moment in time. Sure, my brother was sort of locked behind that door, but I imagine he was listening to the conversation happening outside. You know, nothing was more important than that conversation with my mom in that moment. The time spent. It's like me going for a walk to go chisel away at my physique, like, so I can look in the mirror and be like, like, it's like, no. Or even just tending to the various things. It's like, no, nothing was more important than my family in that moment. So I had nowhere to be but there for every second of it. I wasn't gonna leave. The end of the conversation was predicated on them leaving the conversation. I was a part of it. I wasn't leaving. I was staying until the end. First person there, last person to leave. I'm gonna be there until the sun explodes and Earth ceases to be. Like, this is the sort of stand that I was taking on things. I'm gonna be here because there's nothing more important than this. Nothing's more of a priority. Nothing but this. And so eventually my mom, she goes in her room to go get some shut-eye, or just to sort of zone out, just to chillax for a little bit. Maybe go on her phone, or just find a little peace of mind, just white noise or whatever. And so she goes to bed, and then it's, you know, last man standing out here. And this is kind of where, like, dude, I was having those dark thoughts. All right, I was having those really dark thoughts. You know, my mind was making crazy associations, and you know, and so this is what spawned, you know, so this is what brought about me coming outside to go chit chat, to go talk it up, because I felt like two things. I could either record this from inside of my room, and then, you know, sort of let the conversation. It would definitely be a different kind of conversation. It'd be a different energy output on my part. I'd be taking in different kinds of energy. You know, this would be a different sort of speakeasy altogether, depending on the environment that you're a part of. And so I was thinking maybe I could do it that one, or maybe I could just come out here, right? Shout it up solo, because I needed to be my own best friend in that moment in time, right? I came out here and I wanted to start this off as a kind of like motivational thing. Like, dude, I know you have faith, but it's all good. You know, sometimes you just need to hear it. Sometimes you just need a little bit of reassurance, even if you are not even second guessing yourself. Sometimes you just need, sometimes even though you have faith or whatever, you just need someone to be like, yeah, dude, it's all good, bro. You're on the right path. You know, have faith in the delayed gratification as opposed to the instant gratification, all right? You can please somebody for a moment. You can please somebody for a dinner, but maybe the sort of rewards that the whole world can reap from the awareness of their own sort of issues, can give them insight, can give them the sort of strength. It can give them a place of solidity that in the moment of times where they feel temptation is close, that they can remember that. And they can be like, wait, true, it isn't good for me. I don't want this. I don't have to do this. This thing doesn't have the gravity that I thought it did. Where my attention goes, my energy flows. I could just put this, I can set this down here, or I can just walk away from this and look at that. I'm already in a new timeline. And it's like this kind of thing. And so, yeah, life is so beautiful. I love it so much, dude. Like, in the most basic of terms, the sort of ranges of my life have increased, which is amazing in my opinion. Like, sure, the scarier times are more scary. The heart-pounding times last a little longer, the sort of adrenaline riding around through my body, the norepinephrine, these sort of like fight or flight chemicals that are riding around through me. Yeah, it's intense, but it's not bad. And I love it because now it's like I'm treading new water, and the relationships that I had that we had history, now we're taking on, like, there's more development in who we are as people, and it's everything across the board. And I'm like really grateful for it, happy for it. And I'm also, there's of course, there's like yin and yang. There's always that little tidbit of like, the cold water's coming. And so, yeah, this was thank you so much for listening. This was like something that I needed to hear, which is the sort of, it's like just, being in my own corner, being on my own side, saying, yeah, it doesn't matter if the whole world thinks you're wrong. The Lord knows your heart. And the Lord can see through that. And the Holy Spirit is always with you. And the Holy Spirit loves you. It understands you. It's there for you. And amen.